Are you in a situation where you can't decide whether you should live in Fargo, North Dakota or Moorhead, Minnesota? Well, there's a lot of people that have the exact same issue. In this video, I'll be breaking down everything you need to know about the difference between living in Fargo, North Dakota and Moorhead, Minnesota. Now, if you don't know, Fargo-Moorhead is a metro here on the eastern North Dakota and western Minnesota border. This metro combined has around 250,000 people, making it the biggest city and metro in the state of North Dakota. Fargo-Moorhead is split right down the middle by the Red River. You have the two sister cities, Fargo and Moorhead, and the Red River splits the states in half. So there's a lot of differences that come with living in North Dakota compared to living in Minnesota. Now what you need to know is the Fargo city of North Dakota has around 150,000 people. Then West Fargo also has 50,000. And Moorhead has around 40 to 50,000 too. So there's a size difference living in Fargo, North Dakota compared to Moorhead, Minnesota. So with that comes a lot of different things. There's a lot more stores in the Fargo, North Dakota side, a lot more food in the Fargo, North Dakota side, things to do on the Fargo side compared to living in Moorhead. But for all those people who do live in Moorhead, it's just a short drive away over into North Dakota, 10, 15, 20 minutes, depending on where you live in Moorhead, over to the North Dakota side to where all those amenities and activities are, which can be a good thing for some people who want to have more of that small town feel. Another thing you need to know about the difference between living in North Dakota and Minnesota is the political difference. North Dakota is historically a red state and Minnesota is historically a blue state. So these are just things to keep in mind to know the differences between living in North Dakota and Minnesota. Now there's different policies and different things that come with this and just the type of environment it is. And we'll go into some more of the numbers of the differences here living in Fargo or in Moorhead. The number one thing you'll hear people talk about when they're living here, moving here to Fargo-Moorhead is the income tax bracket difference compared to Fargo compared to Moorhead. So Moorhead's in Minnesota's income tax is a lot higher than it is in North Dakota. North Dakota, the state of North Dakota actually has one of the lowest income tax brackets in the whole entire nation. So as you can see this graph, this is the Minnesota state tax brackets, 5.3% for the lowest percentage, 9.8% for the highest bracket of income. So these numbers compared to the North Dakota numbers, which I'll pull up now, as you can see, the highest North Dakota bracket doesn't even get above 3%. So you can think of how much less you're going to be paying in taxes over on the North Dakota side compared to the Minnesota side for your income tax. And you can see North Dakota's tax brackets are really good. 1.1% for the lowest bracket, 2%, 2.3%, 2.6%, and up to the 2.9% for the highest bracket, compared to Minnesota's state tax bracket, which is 5.3%, 6.8%, 7.8%, then up to 9.8% for the highest income bracket. Now, income taxes is one thing. Obviously, North Dakota is better on this side of things, but there's a lot more things that people don't usually take into account when moving here to Fargo-Moorhead on what's the difference between the two cities. That's what I'll be going through for the rest of this video. The next thing is just to go over the property taxes. So property tax difference living in Moorhead in Minnesota compared to Fargo, North Dakota. And there's not that much difference on this thing. We can see in this graph here, we just took $300,000 value of a home for Moorhead, Minnesota. The average tax rate is around 1.1%, around $3,300 a year. Then comparing that to the North Dakota side, which North Dakota is actually a little bit higher on the state tax side of things. We have Fargo, North Dakota, again, a $300,000 home, 1.2%. for $3,600 a year. So as you can see, a little bit of a difference, but honestly not that much of a difference and not that big of a difference. Then another thing you need to take into account is the special assessment taxes. So if you don't know what specials are, special assessments are a separate property tax from your property taxes. So these are individual to each property. They are for improvements for that property or for that area. So let's say you have a home in Moorhead. They are putting in some brand new sidewalks there. There's special assessments for those sidewalks. So that will be put on the homes that are affected by that. But if you have a home up in North Fargo, and obviously you're not affected by those sidewalks down in Moorhead, so that is where you would have not any specials for that specific project up in North Fargo. Specials are projects for specific homes and is added on to the normal tax and usually distributed between 20, 30 years or whatever it is. Obviously, the newer areas where there's a lot of development, that's where the higher specials are going to be just due to the amount of stuff that people are building, the amenities that are being built around those areas. So the West Fargo, the South Fargo, Horace, those areas tend to have higher specials than Fargo and in Moorhead. So this is a very big thing that people really don't consider, honestly, that often when they think of the difference between Fargo and Moorhead. They just see the income tax bracket. They suddenly assume, oh, Fargo is the best option. These graphs will show how Moorhead can actually be a good option too. This is the average home value for a single family home here in Fargo, North Dakota. We can see $393,000. And we can see that compared to the North Dakota, Cass County, Fargo, and the US average, how much higher that is compared to the Moorhead average value of a home. So we'll look at that now. This is the average value of a home in Moorhead, Minnesota. As you can see, $275,000. In Fargo's is $393,000. Your dollar is going to go a little bit farther on the Moorhead side compared to the Fargo side for the average value of a home because you're able to buy a bigger home. So this is what kind of offsets that income tax difference. And you can see here how affordable homes in Moorhead are actually compared to the whole entire state of Minnesota as a whole. Right down here are the Moorhead and Clay County median estimated value of homes. Then up here is the North Dakota and Minnesota average. We can see how huge of a jump that is, up from 380, 390 all the way down to 270, 280. So that's almost a $100,000 jump in affordability living in the Fargo side compared to the Moorhead side. And if you're looking for more information on home values, make sure you follow along this channel. We do a ton of real estate updates. We're a team that helps people buy or sell a home here in Fargo, North Dakota and Moorhead, Minnesota. If that's something you're interested, reach out to our team, schedule a call in the link in the description below, or you can reach out to the number on the screen now and we can help get you set up with this next move. With buying and selling homes here in Fargo, North Dakota and Moorhead, Minnesota, is you need to know the first-time home buyer program. So being in North Dakota and Minnesota, that's another difference, the first-time home buyer programs. Now, in my opinion, as a real estate agent, I think the North Dakota first-time home buyer program is better than the Minnesota. Now, there is some certain programs in Minnesota that may be better for first-generation home buyers, stuff like that. But for the base, normal, first-time home buyer program, I believe North Dakota is better. They offer certain down payment assistance, or maybe you already have a down payment, they offer a lower rate for first-time home buyers. So there's a lot of great options here on the North Dakota side to be able to get people into their first home. And people just want to have that pride and ownership. You want to be able to go home to something and say, you know, this is mine. You can work with it and you can build value in it at the same time. There's no other investment like that where you can pridefully and rightfully say it's yours, have pride about it, while still building equity and building a great investment portfolio. But Minnesota also has some great programs specifically for first-generation home buyers. So the difference between a first-generation home buyer and a first-time home buyer is a first-time home buyer is someone who has not had their name on the title of a property in the past 3 years. So that's, you know, someone obviously if they're renting right now or if they're living situation, first time buying a home. A first generation home buyer is when your parents did not own a home. So Minnesota offers a really great program for that, up to $18,000 in a down payment credit that it's forgiven for those first generation home buyers here in Minnesota. So that's just some different great programs they have. Obviously there's other different programs for specific niches like veterans, some great VA programs, stuff like that for both states. And if you'd like more information on that, I'm Zach Sykora, I'm a real estate agent. I can connect you with some great lenders I work with in this area. And if you're interested in that, you can just comment the word lender below in the comments and I'll send you my list. Now, buying a home is also not in the picture for everybody, and that's completely fine. Certain living situations, renting is better. And there's certain situations where I may even encourage someone to rent because that's better for their own situation. So what do the rental prices look like when comparing Fargo and Moorhead? This is the average rent for a home or apartment. We can see studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, and 4 bedroom. There is actually very little difference between the North Dakota and Minnesota side. $760, $780, $920, $950, $1,600, $1,500, $1,570. The rent prices are very, very similar no matter what side of the river you're on. So think about it. If you're considering your income and it's getting taxed higher on the Moorhead side compared to the Fargo side, but you're able to get an apartment for the same price whether you're in Fargo or in Moorhead, it may be better for you to be on the Fargo side because then you can actually take advantage of those low income taxes, start to pile up your money faster to that point where you're ready to buy a home.